Welcome to the NRT Now podcast, giving you the latest in Christian music news, topics, and artist interviews directly from the largest Christian music site online, newreleasetoday.com. Now, here's your host, Jake.
Hey, welcome to episode 20. We have a special guest with us here. We have Stephen McWhirter. Hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, man, what's happening?
Hey, so you have your own podcast, too, so you're used to this whole podcast hosting situation.
I get it. Let me put on my radio voice and just say it's quite nice. I'm just kidding. Yes, I do. I get it.
Tell us a little bit about your podcast. Hopefully everybody knows about this podcast by now, I hope.
Yeah. No, that's okay. I'm on here to hang with you, man, whatever you want to do. But, our podcast called God is Real podcast, and it's just myself and the guys that were a part of Iron Bowl Music, Joel Gertis and I and other people. We're just really love to create with the Lord. We love to constantly do stuff. So it's not like we just do music. We like to write stuff. We like, book stuff. We like to do a lot of devotional content. We podcast. So we were just like, let's just do it. Let's just do it all. Whatever the Lord brings up, that we can manage well, we'll just do it. We sit around, we talk about the Lord all the time. And so we're like, well, let's just make a podcast of it. And we'll start interviewing people that are friends of ours in industry. And when we say God is real, the podcast literally isn't about like, tell me about your new record coming out or anything like that. Nothing wrong with that, but that's not what it's about. It's really just about the realness of God behind the scenes, right? Yeah. So pretty cool.
Yeah, and I remember when you guys, launched the podcast, you made the announcement. I watched it without the audio. I can't remember what I was doing at the time, but I watched the live video when you guys launched it. I mean, you guys look excited, at least from the silent video.
We were so depressed, though. It was awful. I'm just kidding. Yeah, it was great.
And so it's an app as well.
Yeah, we have an app too. Again, we love to create and partner with the Lord creatively. And, we put out records and stuff in partnership, with people on a bigger level. But we create all the time. So we wanted some kind of an avenue where we could just put stuff out for free. And so we created this app called God is Real app, and it's free. And what's on it's just a bunch of like songs you can't get anywhere else of us just kind of in the secret place with the Lord, just hitting record. And we have the podcast on there, which you can get other places. And then we have a devotional, like a blog and lots of different stuff. So it's just been a lot of fun having that thing, and kind of like the real fans and the hub are where we connect with those people the most, and we're able to kind of give them some stuff before anybody else. So it's kind of fun.
Give me just a second. I'm downloading this here. I'm kidding. I should probably wait till after this to do that, shouldn't I?
Hey, man, I thought you did your homework, Jake.
Let's see where this goes first, and then I'll download the app.
Yeah, you just download and check it out. I mean, it's pretty cool. It's pretty simple, but yeah.
I was reading a little bit of your backstory, so just if you can tell us a little bit about your testimony and just kind of what's driving this whole God is Real, and where you're heading down with your worship EP that's coming out before too long.
It's really around the realness of God. And like when I was a kid, though, my dad was an evangelist and a traveling evangelist, and I watched him preach on Sunday from church camp to church camp. But the guy that I saw behind closed doors was not the same. I literally watched him physically abuse my mom behind closed doors. And then on Sunday morning, get up in front of people and preach about Jesus. And so I decided at a young age, you know what? If God's real, he's not good. And I don't want anything to do with him. So, and that's it, right? It's one little lie about God that we believe, and then starts the descent,
Yeah, it takes one thing.
It takes one little lie about him like that. And it's like you're totally starts to shape your future and your life. And so at 13, I started smoking, drinking, marijuana, all that kind of stuff. By the time I'm 15, it's cocaine, LSD, pills. I'm selling lots of drugs. By the time I'm 17, I'm a crystal meth addict. I'm using crystal meth every day for nearly 6 years. And during this time, I'm the guy that hates Christianity. And there were people just like really burdened for me, praying for me, interceding for me, telling me they were literally just in tears praying for me. And I always say, we're such selfish people that if you ever feel the need to just start weeping over somebody coming to Jesus, that's the Holy Spirit wooing you to intercede on that person's behalf. It's really important what he's wanting to do in you and through you. Anyways, for me, it was kind of like, oh, God was after me, big time. And I was the guy that hated it so much that I would have cussed you out if you'd have mentioned Jesus around me,
Wow.
And it was crazy. I mean, looking back, I can tell you it was completely and totally demonic and just crazy, So here I am, I'm in this crazy place, and somebody comes and they offer me this book about Jesus called, The Case for Christ by Leader Stephen McWhirter. I don't know if you've heard of it, but
Yeah, great book.
yeah, the atheist journalist who his wife becomes a Christian. He hates Christianity, hates the fact that she's become a Christian, so he seeks out to discredit the whole thing as bunkus. And but he ends up finding out it's all real, gets radically saved, becomes a prolific evangelist and writer for Christianity. So, anyways, they give me this book. Having said how against Christianity I was, this is the most miraculous part of the story, because I didn't claw anyone's eyes out when they offered me the book. I just accepted it, and I think I was like, cool, thank you. And, fast forward, I'm living in a house full of musicians and drugs, and it's just a big cliche. It's 3 o'clock in the morning. I literally have drugs next to me on the side table. There's no music playing softly in the corner. It's like seemingly the most improbable environment for somebody to come to Jesus. And I always say, it's the kindness of God to meet a wounded pastor's kid in a place that seems like the most impossible place to get saved, but to meet me in that place because he knew it had to be somewhere like untouched by the hands of man, where only he could get the glory. In this moment, in this room, with nothing special really going on, I encountered the presence of the living God. I mean, the real thing. And I'm not just saying that like, oh, that's the thing to say as a Christian. No, I mean, like, you have to know me to know that when I say this, like, I always say, God is real, because people want to go as Christians, oh, let me give you the right answer to that. It's yes. No, I'm not looking for the right answer. I want you to know, like, that gravity's real, that God's real. And it's all real. Like everything you've ever read. Oh my, it should freaking blow everyone's mind and change the way how everyone lives. And to me, it's like the simplest Christian belief that just kind of gets taken for granted, but it should totally change the trajectory of every Christian life in a way that, like, rocks the earth. So that night in that room, that's who I encountered, like, for real. I remember thinking to myself, we kind of have this internal dialogue, actually. God's like, it's doesn't sound like Charlton Heston, but anyways, we're talking,
it can be different for different people,
It could be, hey, Stephen, what's up? No, no, but I just remember him saying, I'm good, I'm real, and I have a purpose for your life. What are you going to do about it? And I always joke that, like, that sounds like every one of those words sound like I pulled them out of a book called Christian Things to Say. They're kind of vague and they could apply to anything, but God has a way of saying something you've heard a million times, like, I love you. And if you hear him say it, like really say it to you, it unlocks something that's been dormant inside you your entire life. In that moment, I just cried out and said, God, I want to give my life, but I don't know how to quit all of this. Like 11 years of my life, I don't remember what it's like to not be this person. Like, I can't remember. I want to do this, but I can't. And then the thought, more powerful than words, I just believe the Holy Spirit spoke into me, Stephen, you won't do it. I'll do it.
Wow.
And Christianity 101, the basics, like paint by numbers, easy. I took God at his word. Like, that's the base of our faith. Do you believe what he says? I believed what he said. I believed him like I believe I'm breathing air right now. And I fell to my knees that night in that room, and I gave my life to Christ. I went from addiction to redemption, from meth addict to, worship leader about a year later. But I quit everything overnight, and which is kind of amazing. It's very amazing.
It's unheard of.
Well, I think it's probably more heard of than we know, but it is crazy. You're right. But here's the deal. People come up to me because I'll speak at Christian, like, addiction things, and they'll say, hey, it doesn't work like that. It takes time, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, you're going to have to take this up with Jesus when you get to heaven. It's not my fault. I don't get commission or Jesus bucks for telling this story. And, it is what it is. But I always tell them this, in the Gospels, Jesus never healed anyone the same way twice, because every story has a purpose. And for whatever reason, my story was this. And I always say, don't worry, he had plenty more junk to fix for a long time. And it was like this radical encounter with the realness of God, like calling me out of the tomb, and not to be cheesy like about our song, but literally calling me out of death into life, taking off the grave clothes of the old dead things and putting on life. And it was amazing. I literally remember running around to people going, oh my gosh, it's real. Did you all know it was real? it's amazing. So, yeah.
I just can't shake that. I was listening to Stephen Furtick's last message when this comes out. It's, this isn't what I pictured from December 15th. And one of the things, he had 3 eyes for what God's, power is, and impossible was one of them. That was this morning, and that was pre-coffee, so I can't tell you the other 2. We'll have to go back and research that. But, you're telling me that, that it's an impossible place that God found you, with in the environment, I should say. And I just keep going back to that. It's weird how some of these conversations come back around to stuff that you've heard or something that's been spoken to you just even this morning, like on my drive listening to that sermon. You're just telling that story, and it's just wow for me, just, even for that connection 12 hours ago.
Well, God's, like I say it a lot, it sounds like I'm a broken record. He's real. So He's going to do some of the stuff that we actually believe is amazing. And we should actually be kind of used to it at some point. I want to live in a way where I act like it's all real and it's all true. And that I see him move in my life in a way that actually aligns with who I see in the Bible. Otherwise, we're just playing doctor. We're just pretending. I'm not saying life's not hard and there's not instances where you don't always see things, and there are, and it takes faith. But I think sometimes we throw the baby out with the bathwater with that, and we decide, well, I didn't see him show up that time, so I'm going to just kind of get through and just say I'm a Christian when people ask. And I'll go to church on Sunday. But I just encourage people to say, man, God is so good and so real. Like, even when this podcast is over and no one's around and you're in bed at night and the lights are off, he's real and he's there. It's all real. And the cool thing about it is you can actually ask him to remind you of that and to help stir your desire for him. Philippians 2:13 says, God is in you, giving you the desire and the power to do the things that please him. That's like crazy. He gives you a desire you don't have yet. Yep. So I don't know. I just encourage people to go after him. He's there,
Yeah, very much so. With Iron Bell, you had the song "God That Saves," which was absolutely one of my worship jams. I've moved on. I've seen other people now. Rejected on the podcast.
Hey, it's not you. It's you.
But no, it's still one of those songs that I'm really disappointed in myself that I've let that get away, because that's always been, since I heard it the first time, it hit me really hard. So the funny story is, I'm listening to another playlist somewhere down the line. I'm like, man, this song's awesome. Hey Google, who's playing? This is Grave Clothes from Stephen McWhirter. Yeah, I can't do the Google voice.
Right, that's close enough.
Yeah. I was like, man, that's another one. Like, can he have 2 that hits me that hard? Like, well, the answer is yes, but
well, that's cool. Yeah, the Lord's good at that. I don't know about me, but he's good at that. So,
not to further reject you, but yes, it is very possible.
No, go right ahead, please.
So with songs like "God That Saves" and "Grave Clothes," how has the worship, either brought you through, or how has that embodiment of worship music, come out of this period of your life? Coming from a broken PK who, grew up on worship music. I don't know how old you are, but I'm thinking like Darlene Check, some of the older Hillsong, but mid 90s stuff that was really prevalent at that time, that kind of worship music, to coming out of that period of your life and just really hitting the worship genre hard.
If I could say this, by the way, my dad ended up getting healthy and getting healing, and my mom and dad got through all that. My dad he and I ended up redeeming our relationship. The Lord redeemed that relationship. My father ended up baptizing me and my wife, my fiance at the time, and then he ended up performing our wedding ceremony. Now, he's died of cancer now 7 years back. So the Lord kind of redeemed all that, which is really interesting. And so when I think about the God that saves, the God that redeems, all that, I really mean it. When I talk about this stuff, I feel like sometimes we write songs because we think they're the kind of songs people will sing. But I want to write songs that come out of a place of like really encountering the Lord in that way, in whatever way I'm talking about. Yeah. Like, it's got to be real for me personally. It has to be real. and come out of a real place when I'm singing it. And I want to be able to sing that song when nobody's around to a wall and it be real. The funny thing about Grave Clothes is this, like when I was like, oh, another song about being called out of the grave, but I knew the Lord was up to something because he'd been highlighting John 11:44 to me and Joel Gertis, who, was also part of Iron Bell and tours with me still now. John 11:44 is the Jesus calling Lazarus out of the tomb. He says, come out of the tomb, let them take off his grave clothes, right? And we get to this little house church in Virginia that called us. We were playing some bigger event north, and we were on our way through, and we had a little past travel date. And these people reached out and were like, hey, we're a house church, 50 people. Will you come and just worship with us? And we were like, sure. You know what? As long as you're not serial killers, we're on our way.
Serial killers need saving too. So, I mean, who are we to be picky?
I think we should send someone else, though. I feel like the Lord's saying send someone else. But anyway,
Wow.
Anybody else feeling that? Yep. So, well, we get to this house church, man, and these people are so sweet that we asked them, well, what's God doing here? And they only said one thing, John 11:44. He keeps bringing it up to us. We're like, wow, well, that's not a coincidence. So spontaneously that night of worship, we just started singing the chorus and the verse and the bridge to the song, Grave Clothes. Like, it was totally spontaneous. And the whole room was like going crazy for, singing it over themselves, singing to the Lord. And it was like, you could just feel this overwhelming presence of God. So it wasn't like your typical like Nashville songwriter. It was like, okay, God's doing something. Fast forward, I'm on the phone with Mike Weaver from Big Daddy Weave, and we're talking about what's going on in life. And I know he ends up saying, what's going on with you guys? And we said, we've got this song Grave Clothes we're really excited about it. And you just hear, nobody's heard it, by the way, at this time. It hasn't released yet. I've just got the EP or the single done from the producer. And when I tell him the song, it's like crickets on the other side. It's silent. And he ends up telling me, man, this morning I was driving from Juice Bar to my house, and I just started humming and thinking about this melody and these lyrics about grave clothes. And when he started telling me the stuff, he was like, it's almost word for word what we did. It was almost exactly what we did. And he hadn't heard this yet. And the melody was similar. And here's the point. Well, first off, I told him, Nana Boo Boo, I got it first. So,
like any good songwriter should.
Yes, totally. Like any good person. So that's really amazing, Mike. Dibs. No, but seriously, here's the point about that. When God is saying something important in the earth, like as worship leaders and songwriters and Christians, creative people, we need to pay attention, and because we get caught up in just making things and we forget who's the one working through us and what he's trying to do. And there's a big scheme instead of just this little kingdom we're trying to build, of our own. And when God's trying to say something important, he repeats himself among the earth. It's not just about a song. Like, we are really excited about this song and proud of it. And it goes to radio in like February of 2020. But all that aside, it's like not about a song. Like, God is repeating himself. He says something important. Like in the Hebrew language, there's no word for like purest gold. You just like say it twice, gold. So like when God says, holy, 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 it's like a totally different world, like of holy, like he is completely other. And so when God's trying to say something, he repeats himself. And so the song Grave Clothes is obviously this theme. I've even seen a bunch of pastors that have never preached a sermon on it that are recently releasing a bunch of sermons about this. And I was like, wow, okay, God's doing something. And here's the thing. One, yes, he's calling people that don't know the Lord yet out of the tomb into life. Totally, yes. But the other big thing is this. He's calling the bride. Many of us have come out of the tomb, but we haven't walked into the fullness of life. Like, we're still wearing some old dead things that we can't take with us into our destiny. And I believe the Lord's calling the bride to like take off your grave clothes, step into the fullness of life, like the real deal. Because I meet a lot of people that are just getting by. It's a call to awaken the bride as well as people to give their lives to Christ.
You're talking about the bride, and all I'm thinking, you're talking about repeating yourselves, and I can see so many wives just seeing, I have to deal with this all the time. I have to repeat it like 8,000 times before it actually sinks in. And or moms or whatever.
Yeah.
But you're right. I mean, sometimes it just needs repeated over and over before it like actually sinks in.
Yeah, that and we know it's the Lord when in community. somebody says, oh man, I feel like God's been bringing this up a lot. And then somebody goes, hey, he's been bringing that up with me too. And then oh, that's him. Okay, well then it must be important. Let's press in together and figure out what God's wanting us to do. That's the beautiful thing about community and the bride and the church coming together and like really praying and really listening. And then, only in community can you know whether you're not crazy or not.
Grave Clothes comes out in February, give or take.
To radio. It's out
now.
Everywhere, but yeah.
Yeah, you're talking about releasing to radio. And then the EP is coming out not far behind that, I understand.
The EP actually comes out before it. January 24th, the EP is releasing. I think it's the week after that, I believe.
That's awesome. Well, like I said, I'm very excited with that. Like I said, I love God That Saves. I love Grave Clothes. I mean, you've been holding out the EP from us here, so I'm excited.
Oh, you're getting. I'm sending it to you now. You're gonna get it.
Whether I like it or not.
Whether you like it or not, you're gonna get it.
So I'd like to take a minute. We do the We Love Awards every year, and so we're kind of highlighting a few categories with each episode here. And
yeah,
I think this would be the perfect episode to talk about the rock songs. Oh wait, no, wrong notes. Let me get my right notes.
You're good, dude.
We have 3 categories for worship songs this year. Fun fact, you actually performed at last year's live show.
Yeah, and we did the one before that too. Yeah, I love Kevin. It's been great getting to do those and connect with your all's team. A bunch of fun, really cool people, man. Good people.
This year, for the worship song of the year, we have Raise a Hallelujah from Bethel Music. We have Sea of Victory from Elevation.
Another great song.
Yeah, absolutely. Whole Heart, Hold Me Now from Hillsong United. King of Kings from Hillsong Worship. And then Breakthrough from Red Rocks Worship.
Cool.
And I think 5 very solid songs. And there's just been an explosion of songs this year. And I think this was a definitely tough category just because there was so much.
Gosh.
I'm happy with these nominees as well.
Yeah, dude. Great stuff. Great people. Lots of cool songs there.
It's crazy for me to see Hillsong there just like album after album. Like, it doesn't matter what album they put out. There's something there that's just solid. And King of Kings is just, it's an incredible song. I got to go to their tour with Elevation, which, See Victory was an amazing song as well, especially to experience that live, with a whole auditorium. It was incredible. There's a full auditorium just for this worship tour. It's amazing to see this move.
Yeah, it's powerful, man. I think most of those people are really doing a great job of stewarding what the Lord's given them, and that's awesome.
For the worship album of the year, David Leonard, The Weight, which we were talking just a little bit earlier, that you got to talk with him on your podcast a little bit.
Yeah, David and I are friends. I can say that without being pretentious and being honest. He's a great guy. Yeah, he was on my podcast as well. He and I have written together a lot and spent time together, and he's great, man. He's a real deal. Very, very sweet dude, very down to earth, and I'm excited for him and proud of him.
And then we got Influence Music's Rebels, which just the theatrical quality from their music videos was just amazing for a worship crowd, for a worship group. Michael Ketterer made it, I can't remember how many rounds in America's Got Talent. And I mean, that's what's in the middle of this album here. We got Leland's Better Word live, and I've been hearing Waymaker everywhere.
Yeah, man, me too. I was like, I knew it from back in 2016. It was kind of more of an R&B song. It was great then. And then recently I was like, okay, everybody's playing the song, and I'm like, okay, I guess I got to start playing this here and there. I literally was like, okay, fine. But as soon as I lit it once, I was like, dang it, I love this freaking song. It's so good. It's so funny.
Yeah, it's one that creeps up on you, too. Like, the first time you're like, okay.
Really, that's what it was. And then I was like, oh, crap, I love this.
You get out of the car, and all of a sudden you're singing Waymaker.
Yeah. Anyways, great song.
Yeah, for sure. And then you got Lindy and the Circuit Riders, Driven by Love. Mm-hmm. And then you got Luke and Anna Hellebronth. I did it. I was worried about that one.
Yay!
And Motions of Mercy.
It's great.
And if I'm honest, I haven't heard those 2 albums yet. I think I've heard Lindy in some of her previous work. An amazing worship leader. If I'm honest, I don't think I've added Luke and Anna to my to my new music yet. So sorry guys, but that's the awesome thing about these nominations and the We Loves is we get to hear about so much that we may have missed with what's come out. Our last category is the Chorus Award, which is the Church Worship Album of the Year, which this one is super stacked as well. Bethel Music's Victory, recorded live.
Awesome record.
Yep, awesome record. We got Hillsong's United People. That was an amazing album. People was an amazing album.
Yeah.
Hillsong Worship's Awake, which we'll hear in just a little bit with Ben. This one snuck up on me. I don't remember hearing any announcements for this album or anything. It just all of a sudden showed up for me.
It's awesome.
Yeah, and it came out amazing. And then you got Planet Shaker's Rain, which is another amazing one. We heard from Joshua Brown, the keyboardist.
Yeah, I know Josh.
We keep trying to catch up for coffee or something. Maybe by the time this airs, it'll actually happen.
Yeah, he's great. Yeah.
But no, another very incredible album, and then The Belonging Company, On Wonder. I'm starting to hear more and more stories from The Belonging Company. I listen to Overflow Beyond the Music quite a bit, and it comes up in the podcast every so often. And Josh McCabe just talks with some of the people behind, The Belonging Company, and the environment that is there, and just all the artists and that worship leaders that hang out there. I mean, it's incredible, and it's not, at least from what Josh has said, it's not a ego competition, who leads worship better. He was talking in one episode where Danny Goki was just happy to go out and work the parking lot. And that's the heart behind that church. And
it's awesome.
It kind of comes through the music here. So, man, just another incredibly stacked category. I'm going to put you on the spot here.
Go ahead. I like that.
On the spot, who are your picks for these categories?
No. Hard no. I can't do it because there's a lot of those people I know, and I just can't. Nope, not doing it. You're getting a hard pass. That's on the spot. Hey,
I am very okay with that answer because I can't do it either. Well, let's head on over and let's listen to a little bit from Hillsong. All right, so we are joined with Renee and Ben from Hillsong Worship.
Yes, sir.
I get them confused sometimes. We got Hillsong United, Young and Free, and Worship.
Yep.
So thank you guys so much for joining us.
Well, thanks for having us, Jake. Really appreciate it.
Awesome.
I was doing a little bit of reading earlier, and it sounded like United was originally the youth side of Hillsong. Was I right in reading that?
Yeah.
So kind of how have those three kind of branched out over the years?
Well, Hillsong Worship is just the worship songs of our church, the songs that we sing in church. It includes everybody that's in our creative team. And so that's all of the guys that go out on the road with Young and Free and with Hillsong United. Obviously, Hillsong Young and Free is our youth ministry worship expression. And United, as you say, was the youth expression, but it's sort of become more of like an artistic expression of worship of our church. And it's an incredible part of what we do. But those guys, again, are really key members of our church team, and so they sometimes come out with the Hillsong Worship team as well.
And so you guys just released a new album. Was that in the works for a little while? Did I miss something? Because it kind of snuck up on me, and all of a sudden there's a new album showed up in Spotify
Surprise.
For me.
Yeah. So it's the first studio record that we've done probably for 20 years or so. And so, we worked on that this year and have just started recording some of the live components for that as well. But I'm sorry it snuck up on you. We'll have to get you better informed next time.
Well, it was my fault probably. Like I was probably running out there and I missed it. That's probably on me.
Nah, man. We'll take responsibility. Renee will take responsibility.
I'll take it.
So Renee, tell us a little about you and what you do in Hillsong here.
So I'm actually a part of Young and Free, and I come representing Young and Free in our Hillsong Worship expression. And I am one of the vocalists, and
songwriter.
I would say I songwrite more for Young and Free, but a little bit for worship as well. So yeah, it just depends when we're around, what's happening, that kind of thing. Yeah.
Awesome. So I'll ask you the same question that I just asked the Elevation guys. We'll do kind of a crossover episode here. Yeah. Ben, you've been around for a little while. I remember Mighty to Save.
Oh yeah.
I was looking through the CCLI list, and there's like 287 or some odd number, large number of songs that you have credited to your name. I think a lot of them I couldn't read because they're different languages, so I think you're padding your stats a little bit here.
Yeah, I'm multilingual though, Jake. No.
So you've been around for a little while. What have you seen? How have you seen kind of worship and the industry change over the course of that time?
I think that in some ways, our focus hasn't changed at all. We're writing songs for our church, and I think by the grace of God for the church, and that's definitely part of the responsibility that we feel. And I think what's been cool to watch is just how I think worship music, and particularly church worship music, has found a voice across lots of where there were maybe sort of divides across genres and even within sort of Christian music. I've seen a lot of those sort of come down, and so you see a lot more collaboration with people who were just worship writers or just CCM writers, or now working together. And I love that collaboration, and I think that's a picture of unity, and I think that's healthy. And the Bible talks about unity attracting the blessing of God, and I think that that's true, and I think we've seen that, and I think it's a really cool development.
And so, Renee, how long have you been with Young and Free?
Since it started, I think it's about 8 years now. I should do the math.
Seems like that Young and Free's been around forever, though, at the same time.
Yeah, feels like it.
At least from my perspective.
Yeah.
So how have you seen that, and change in the last, 8 or so years as well, with what Young and Free has brought to the table?
I think when we started, we were very much, I guess, fresh youth, and even fresh when it comes to like writing worship music and how we would do that. So I think over the years we've developed in a way, I guess, maybe even spiritually become a bit more mature, and it's just been awesome because we've been able to grow on a journey together, have a few more life experiences, and actually be able to pen to paper what that is. So I guess just the journey has been maturity, even though we're still young and we love it. Like, it's definitely a spirit thing, but yeah. I
got the chance to ask this to the Planet Shakers guys as well, but what are you guys seeing in Australia? It seems like there's kind of almost a revival happening across Australia. What are you guys seeing that from the church side?
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope that's true. I think that, Australia is a very remote country, and we know that because to get anywhere we have to fly a long way. But for whatever reason, I think it is a place where there's incredible things happening in the church. Like, I love the Planet Shakers guys, and I love what they're doing, and I think they're bringing an incredible sound and passionate worship, and obviously, our church is trying to do the same thing, and but there's just so many great churches that have been planted and are reaching the community, and I think that that God sort of chooses to use people, and sometimes it doesn't make a lot of sense, but that's his plan, and it's amazing to watch him outwork and build the thing that he said he was going to build, which is his church in Australia. And we see it in our church when we plant a church that reaches the community, how much change and how much impact can come in a local community. That to me looks like revival. You see people come in and know the Lord, and you see just the overflow of that then into the life of the community. And it makes me passionate as ever about seeing the church move forward and believing in the power of obviously the power of God, but then the power of the local church.
And I was reading an interview that you did at one point in time, Ben, that you said you love the local church. Your heart is for the local church. But yet, I mean, the songs that you write, impact, the global church. I don't think there's an award that you haven't won by this point in Christian music.
Did New Release today do an award?
Yeah, we do the We Love Awards, which should be starting the voting pretty quick.
That's one that I need to.
You haven't won that one.
Sorry, that's facetious.
We'll need to make that happen.
Yeah, that's where I was going. Thank you. I was fishing.
We have some political action happening here. I don't understand how you haven't won it yet.
Sorry.
Campaigning, that's the word I'm looking for.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll put my campaign manager, Renee, onto it.
Yes, I'll be there.
Yeah. I wasn't prepared for a campaign, but here we are. But how do you you write, and like I said, the reach of Hillsong songs go global. So kind of how do you take that, and kind of make it small again, back to the local church, back to that heart for the local church?
I think that some of it is just the fact that, like, since I've been a little kid, like I've loved church music. Like I fell in love with the songs that we sing in church when I was really little, and as soon as I picked up a guitar, like I started learning church music and loved it, wanted to sing it, wanted to write it. So part of it, I think, is kind of in my DNA, and then I think the other part of it is that I spend most of my time at home and building our church community, and so that it's an exception in lots of ways to be out on the road like this, to be here. And I love that too, because you get to kind of see the breadth of the church and to see the impact of what really is like a kind of a local church expression that has, by the grace of God, has reached people that we couldn't have even dreamt of reaching. But I think, it keeps coming back to the fundamentals, and that is helping people connect with God and giving people a song of worship that helps them say what they want to say to God.
And so, Renee, as you've gone through the Young and Free process, and you've been through the country a ways and kind of seen that difference, what have you seen kind of on the worship, here stateside as compared to what you do in the church setting, back in Australia?
Well, I think it's really awesome because I guess sometimes we can take for granted what we have at home because we have a very, I would say, a healthy atmosphere in church, and we're always constantly trying to better ourselves. And I think when we travel, we get to see churches that actually don't, I guess, have what we have, but we also just see people that are very hungry for Jesus and very hungry for what he's doing. And I think the best thing about touring, and especially across the States, is it's so funny how we're on the other side of the world, yet we're coming and we're gathering around Jesus, and the Holy Spirit unifies us, and we are in a place where we just kind of meet spiritual siblings. And it's the most peculiar yet amazing thing ever. We can't take that for granted at all, worshiping together.
I don't want to take this necessarily the wrong way, but, Marty Sampson, we just had, what Marty Sampson came out with, a little while ago. It's been talked about over and over and over and over and over again around the Christian music scene. But like I said, I don't want to dwell on that, but kind of where I want to go with this is, what is it on a day-to-day basis, that can creep in a little bit, if that makes sense?
Yeah, I mean, I think that worship is way more broad than just our songs. And I think that a life that is a life of surrender and a life of sacrifice, and I think we see that in the life of Jesus, that the Bible says that it wasn't in going to the cross and not considering equality with God something to be grasped. Jesus wasn't rewarded with his place at the right hand of the Father because he did those things, but it was the proof that he was God. And I think that there's something in that for us as believers, as we take up our cross daily, as we walk out that Christ example, we build the kind of lives that please God and that God blesses. And so I think we, as believers, we want to try to package things up, and we want to say worship is this, but it has to spill out into our whole lives. It has to be, we have to bring our family life, our work life, our studies, our music if we're musicians, our church life into alignment with the will of God. And I think that's the struggle that we all have, is to do that in a way that is comprehensive, that's genuine, that's authentic. And also I would say that I don't think God's afraid of the wrestle. We see that, Jacob wrestles God and he leaves with a blessing. And I don't think God's afraid of our questions. I don't think God's afraid of our wrestle. And I think we as believers just need to work out how to do that well in a way that edifies the church, that edifies our relationships, and that builds our own lives.
For me, I think everybody struggles with that, to a certain degree, whether it's, public or private or, I think that's a struggle that everybody has, when the times are usually not the greatest. So I love what you say with that. When you guys are writing for the church, and you guys, every song that you write, it seems like has a kind of a global impact, or not. That's not the right way I want to say that. It has a chance to be seen by everybody. Is that kind of like a pressure that, can you guys get like lost in that process, or do you keep normally just focused on, this is for my church, is that this is where this is?
Yeah, I think you can lose focus really easily. I think the thing that helps is being part of a great creative community, and that we've got a collective set of goals and a vision that we're shooting towards. I think that really helps. But again, I feel like my passion is to write music that helps the church worship, and so that's kind of my filter on everything. Yeah, and then I think that I'm still always blown away by any song that kind of reaches outside the walls of our church, and when the stories come in about the way God has used a song, and that to me becomes the story of those songs, and it's completely surprising still, and it's still completely the work of God. And I sort of sometimes still pinch myself and go, why does God use us the way that He does? But it's it's an incredible thing to get to do and to be a part of.
And so, Renee, when you guys are going across the country, what do you guys see more on the youth side, the younger crowd?
I think with like what Ben was saying is like, we definitely have to cater to the individual. Like, we have to write songs for people with personal struggles, even the youth. Like, they're going through things that sometimes we look at and we're like, oh, that's such a silly thing to go through. But it's so evident in their lives at that point of time, because they're malleable and they're still discovering who they are. So I think being sensitive to that, and also just, I guess, coming with a very like welcoming heart. Because I think, and we're still learning as well, because by year, things are changing with social media, with technology. The youth are having a new kind of culture every single year. So we're trying to see like what we can do to bring Jesus in that atmosphere, and how we can, I guess, assist in like leading them.
Well, I know I kind of took that a little heavy, and something that we've been talking about a lot in this podcast so far has been seasons. We have, and I think it's in Ecclesiastes 3, that where, it talks about seasons where, there's highs and there's lows. And, unfortunately, some of them are a lot more public than others, just kind of the nature of, being an artist. And so I just kind of want to hear kind of from you guys. Like I said, we had the one example that hit, kind of Hillsong, that whole side a little bit, and kind of create a little bit of a ripple. That way, Joshua Harris was, kind of at the same time. And, so I wanted to just, kind of hear your guys' heart, from that. So I appreciate you guys, bringing that. So pick it up, bring up the conversation just a little bit. I guess I'll ask, what songs, in the whole, Hillsong catalog have reached you the most, the songs that you've written, or, maybe it's Brooke, maybe it's, Young and Free. And what songs have, from that history have kind of meant the most to you? This is a question for both of you guys.
I want to say Young and Free song, but really the songs for me right now is like, I guess it's for everyone as well, but like What a Beautiful Name and King of Kings are my two like all-time favorites, because I'm just huge on the unity of the church, and that's the one thing that is just so unifying, just dwelling around the name of Jesus. So that gets me every time. And I do like a good Young and Free dance song every now and then as well. What about you, Ben?
Yeah, I think it's really hard to pick out songs, because, as you say, like there's seasons in life, and I think the beautiful thing about a song is that it almost immediately, when you hear it, takes you back to all of those times when God spoke to you and did something in your life. So I can think back. I've got sort of great nostalgic sort of connection to lots of the old Hillsong songs. Like Shout to the Lord and Lord, I Give You My Heart, and those are some of the songs that I sort of sung when I was a little kid, and definitely those. But then, I've loved watching. There's sort of songs that mean a lot to me personally, because they're sort of definitive moments. For example, Alive with Young and Free, when I feel like that was a song that gave a sound and an expression to another generation of our musicians and worship leaders, and so I love that song for that reason. Probably, Stand United, sort of similar kind of song. So I just love watching the faithfulness of God through, now generations of people that have come through our team.
The thing that I love is that, some of the Hillsong songs that, I grew up listening to, and some of the ones that I'm listening to now, affect, my kid, soon to be kids, hopefully, is down the line, and this one behind me here is, I would say, a much better worshiper than me. Just, I'm the kind of hands in pocket, like just kind of absorb it in, kind of worshiper, just kind of be there. And you'll see her back there. She has both hands raised. She's all into it. She definitely learned a lot better than me. So, she's even started to pick up some of the songs that I listened to when I was and worshiped to when I was a kid. And I love how you say that. Just connects between generations.
Well, I think that's one of the beautiful things about songs and the song of the church is that, like, if you think back to some of the great church leaders, like, Martin Luther, he understood that music and lyrics was a way to carry the message and carry the gospel to people who couldn't maybe even read and write and couldn't encounter and couldn't discover for themselves, who God was. So I think in many ways, like, our songs still do the same thing today. They carry an expression and a message of who God is and what God has done from generation to generation. It's an amazing thing that we get to be a part of that.
The tour that you guys are on, you got Elevation, Casting Crowns, and you guys, this is the front end of the tour, but what have you already seen being alongside, two other, I call it, co-headliners. I think arguably, it's a 3-headliner tour. What have you already seen in the short time that you've had to work with, these guys here?
Well, just that they're all incredible people. I know the Elevation guys already, and, I obviously love them and love their church. But it's been really cool to get to know the Crowns guys a little bit more. Like, we've sort of bumped into each other at various things, and I've always thought they're lovely. But just to kind of catch a bit more of their heart and realize that they're just like us as well. That we're all passionate about God, and we're passionate about building his church, and we're passionate about building the lives of his people. And so there's a unity in that same focus. And I think watching that over the next few weeks is going to be really cool.
Renee, what's your expectation, for the next little bit of the tour? It's a 6-week, 8-week tour?
I don't know if it's
I
quite
think
that
it's
long.
4 week.
4 week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Look at that. How long are we here for?
Yeah, I think even the couple of nights that we've done so far, there's just been a real sense of clarity in the room, which has been beautiful because it's brought peace. And I guess, like, sometimes maybe there might be some people who would only, like, I've personally, and I feel bad saying this, but I've actually never listened to Casting Crowns before, but actually standing in the room, what, is that bad? I know, but standing in the room and, like, seeing the songs that they've written and reading those lyrics and just being mind blown and just, like, being in awe really of, like, what God's doing through them. It brings so much clarity and so much peace and so much unity, like Ben was saying, and just helps us feel even less lonely because there's still people with the same heart in the world doing what we're doing. And it's very encouraging to be doing that with them. And they're giants. They're, like, amazing. There's so much to learn from them.
Being a new Casting Crowns listener, I'm going to put you on the spot and say, what is your favorite Casting Crowns song so far? I expect that you've listened to the whole catalog now.
I know. Every single second of every single
Deep
day.
immersion.
I like the Nobody song. I'm just a nobody, trying to tell everybody. Something like that. I don't even know.
The accent probably needs a little bit of work. I'm not an authority on that. But.
I know. It's not good.
So we've gone from a campaign to karaoke to who knows where this is going to go.
I know.
All right, well, thank you guys so much for joining us for a little while. Thank you guys for just opening up and being real with us for a bit. And
pleasure, Jake.
Of course.
We look forward to worshiping with you guys tonight.
Thank you. Likewise.
Amen.